Howdy, folks. Happy, I don't know. Sorry. Happy Thursday. I don't know. Sorry.
Can't hockey. How many times have you said that? Like, my buddy Aaron got me that shirt. You haven't said that. Like, somebody says, hey, Mike, let's go somewhere Thursday. And you're like, sorry, can't. I got a hockey game. Can't. Got practice. Can't. Got. Yeah.
No, but not with just those three words. There's usually other words filtered in between, but okay.
Sure.
Yes, because I tend to elaborate. But okay, we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
So, something a little shocking here. Dean Blandino, who's in charge of all the referees in the NFL, got interviewed recently and said that some of his guys were approached to throw games.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Approached by who, pray tell?
No idea. But the idea is that this has happened, and clearly, nothing was successful. And then apparently it was found out in conversation like the NFL can look at their bank accounts. They have access because I guess so they know like that everything's on the up and up.
Right.
Like this is like something that we knew could possibly happen, but you probably didn't realize that it was monitored to that degree.
Yeah, I mean, these guys who, remember, most of these officials, I think all of them, none of them are full-time officials. They're like insurance agents or this or that, and they do this as a well-paid second job. So could they be tempted by something? I mean, that's the thing. NHL officials, NBA officials, Major League umpires, those are all full-time gigs.
Yeah.
So, and they have, I'm sure that the NFL has their officials have a union of some sort. But yeah, I mean, all I can I know that people say this all the time, and you can't ever prove it, and I won't say definitively one way or the other. But I mean, when there are the calls that we see in some of these games, what's the first thing that people say? Oh my God, somebody's got money on this. So is that true? Probably not. But, when calls are made that are just completely and utterly bizarre, like the horse collar on Josh Allen, that wasn't called,
Yeah. I mean, it's just weird. I think I said he ran officials, but he's the rules analyst.
Yeah.
But
I know the name, but I know the name.
He was an official, I think, right? I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is, what I find interesting is like the NFL guys are getting flagged on the road. Like they know who they are because they get a lot of TV time. The one thing that's safe about the NHL, even though NHL fans like to yell and know about these guys, outside of NHL fans, probably nobody knows who these NHL officials are when they're traveling.
And the other thing is that you really...
Do you agree with that?
Yes. And you really can't make a lot of money on NHL games because... Let's just say if you put big money on an NHL game, it'll get noticed.
Right.
Whereas big money on football and
baseball happens all the time. That's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, they will sniff it out very easily. So, all right. We haven't had a show since Monday, and I've been keeping up and there's something pent up. As soon as we get into the show, I will vent my spleen, and then we can move on to more positive things. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, December 14th, 2023.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology, and tip of the hat to Zach Hyman for having a lot of guts.
Yes, amen. And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. And if you don't know what Russ is talking about, just search Zach Hyman's name on Twitter, and you'll see the story that was written by Mark Spector and a lot of the stuff that's going on in the world right now, which is absolutely despicable. But I won't inject politics into the show. But I will inject a bit of bitterness at my part for a certain fan base because they're scum. They really are scum. And okay, so let's backtrack. And again, we haven't had a show since Monday, and on that show, we said that it was possible that John Tavares would get his 1,000th point. He had 998 points, 2 points short of 1,000, and that he possibly could get it against the Islanders at UBS Arena, a building that probably you could give him a little credit for getting them to build it, because the organization was really lost at when Tavares departed the Islanders and went to the Leafs in 2018.
Yeah, I wrote about it. I remember being on Sirius, and I said this guy could change the fortunes of that franchise, and I thought he could. And he did a lot for them. It's just they needed more than him. That was the problem.
Right, and if I'm recalling correctly, they were at Barclays when he left. Then they went back to the Coliseum while UBS was being built.
Right, he had no idea UBS was going to be built.
Right, and that's one of the reasons why. So, so he goes into this game at 998. I thought there was a decent chance, and obviously his teammates wanted him to get that. And as usual, since he's departed, every time he touched the puck, the fans booed. That's fine. Whatever. I mean, Leaf fans have done that for players that have left the Leafs, and Sabres fans did it for, Jack Eichel. That's par for the course. But Tavares gets a goal, I believe, in the second period. And then with 6 seconds remaining in regulation, he assists on Morgan Rielly's tying goal. And the Leaf players got permission of the league that if he had scored his 1,000th point, they would all come off the bench and congratulate him. And I'll give the Islanders organization credit. They put it on the scoreboard.
They did.
They said, congratulations to John Tavares on his 1,000th career point.
I mean, he played over 600 games for them.
Right. And, I give, that Lou Lamoriello, he's a class act. Give him his due. He played for that team for 9 years. That's where the plaudits and the congratulations.
All the niceties are over now.
All the niceties are over because the classless morons who root for the Islanders lustily booed John Tavares when he's being congratulated by his team and for a career mark. I'm sorry, you can hate him. Fine. I will say till I'm blue in the face that the blame is not on John Tavares for him leaving the island. If they wanted to, the complaint from all these Islander fans was, he didn't give them a chance to get anything for him. Well, okay. According to a couple people that I talked to, first of all, he had a no movement clause in the final year of his contract. So after July 1st of 2017, it was up to him whether he wanted to go or not. Before then, it was up to the Islanders. And according to reports, Garth Snow wanted to trade him. They couldn't get him on a contract. And the ownership said, no, let's keep him. Okay. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. But if that was true, then he's blameless because ownership wanted to keep him. And if at all during those negotiations, while they're negotiating that entire year, he said, there was an impasse, then he could have approached Tavares' agents and said, we want him to waive his no move clause. Apparently They did not do that. So really, the fact that he left is not just on him. He's not the villain. And I had some idiot on Twitter who said, well, he's a villain, couldn't even spell villain right. So, and I had to correct him.
That's the difference, by the way, between a villain and like a super villain is the spelling. Like if you can't spell it, you can't be one.
Yeah, super hyphen. Yeah, but I mean, okay. You could say, Mike, why aren't you letting it go? I'll let it go when the Islanders fans let it go. Okay,
they're not all like that. Thomas said that that was his favorite player. He was happy he did it. There was a guy who went on before me on Sirius who was happy he did it and was glad he did it.
Yeah.
But the overwhelming majority feel the other way, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I mean, but honestly, it was absolutely petty. It was absolutely classless. And I honestly, like whenever people say, well, Mike, why do you have something against the Islanders? Now you know. That's why. They're classless. Not all of them, but most of them. The ones that booed right here. So anyway, okay. So now we're done with that. I vented my spleen. Now we can move on to other things. I don't know. You start first, Russ. What do you want to talk about?
Wait, hold on. Dan B goes, this is only getting this much attention is because it happened in New York. If Tavares had left St. Louis, it's not a story. Not necessarily. I mean, I would say you're right, St. Louis compared to New York, but there's a lot of other markets that it would still be a story.
Well, somebody responded and says, well, just shows a difference between Toronto and the island because the Leaf fans cheered Matt Sundin when he came back. I wasn't at that game, but I was watching that game. There was booing. There was booing. So, I'm not saying that that the Islanders are exclusive. And you know what? If I was a fan back then instead of a reporter, I would have booed because Matt Sundin screwed the Leaf organization. But most of them cheered. I heard very few cheers at UBS Arena when Tavares got his 1,000 points. So yeah. I will, And Andrew is right. Sundin was like in his late 30s, and that was their last opportunity to get something from him if he didn't want to play there. And supposedly, remember he re-signed with Vancouver the next year. They could have traded him. He ended up wanting to go someplace. If he would have stayed in Toronto, then nobody would have had a problem. But he ended up leaving. He ended up going to play with the Sedins. So anyway, so yeah, there you go. Randy saying that the Flame fans booed Goudreau. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, and Goudreau knew he would get booed. Like, he talked about it. Like, I'll mention this, Mike. I was at World Junior Camp for the U.S. team. I'm not going to give a long report because, quite frankly, I don't want to trump all the other things I'm writing. But I also will give more tomorrow. Today's just day one. But they do have a really strong team. I mean, I've covered a lot of these teams, and I would say that the offensive group is definitely exceptional, and the defense is really strong. Goaltending, really strong. Like, they have two goalies that it doesn't matter. They're going to battle, Trey Augustine and Jacob Fowler, they're going to battle it to the end there. So that's, you can't do any better than that.
Fowler is a Montreal draft pick.
Yes.
And Augustine, I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah, I forget who got Trey
Augustine. I know, yeah. Well, yeah, okay. So Team Canada chose, while you're looking that up, Team Canada chose their roster. And the interesting thing is they're one player short. They're at 22.
Michigan, sorry. No, hold on. Oh, yeah. Well, we talked about that. All right. So I had a conversation with Stephen Ellis, who was at that camp, and then the Red Wings.
Okay, Red Wings. Okay.
For Trey Augustine. So, yeah. So I had a conversation with Stephen Ellis, and so it does seem like it's going to be a forward who they're going to be looking for, not a defenseman.
Now, they're 12, 7, and 3. That's what they are. 12 forward, 7 defensemen, 3 goals. So if it's a forward, because I was just looking this up, it could be Matt Patras from the Bruins. It could be Adam Fantilli from Columbus. It could be Zach Benson from the Sabres.
Right. My feeling is I don't think it's going to be Fantilli. I don't think Columbus is going to let him go. Just the way Vincent has sort of been with players and such, I can't imagine he's going to be, magnanimous and let him go. So I think Benson has an excellent chance.
Well, I thought so until the news that just came out. Remember, Jordan Greenway's out, Zemgus Girgensons is out, and now the report here that Jeff Skinner is out, and Jeff Skinner was their leading scorer, 12 goals, playing the left side, the same side that Benson plays. I'm not sure the Sabres are going to let Benson go. So it could be Poitras, or it could be, I know that I read something that said that if none of the NHL players are released, that they might go back to Fergus. If they go back to Fergus, then,
Well, Fergus had a really bad camp. I was wondering about that. And so Steven told me that he looked really bad in camp. He said something was off in his game.
Okay.
And so I don't think they would go back to him.
Okay. But I mean, there are other options out there, but I mean, we'll see. I mean, let's just say Poitras's play with Boston has tailed off.
It has, and that's why there is a chance that they would let him go for sure.
Right. So, I mean, we'll see that. That'll be in the next couple days. But just touching on some things going on in the league right now. I watched a lot of and it's topical here, but I watched a lot of the Buffalo-Colorado game last night. And there was starting to be a little bit of confidence starting to bubble up regarding the Sabres because the last three games.
So could we hold it one sec? Sorry, because Jay brought up something that is a fact, and my brain just I have to get into the show now because I was freezing in the rink for the last 3 hours. Actually, I wasn't that cold, Mike. It was my feet that were cold. I'm going to buy heavier socks. But anyhow, Jay has a good point. Denver Barkey had a really good camp. He had a really good camp. Steven said even the coach said he had a really good camp, and then inexplicably he still got cut. So he probably will be that guy if all else fails. So I think Jay is right. Right.
And that's possible. That's definitely possible.
Yeah.
But going back to what I was saying, there was starting to be some confidence and some positivity bubbling up that maybe the Sabres were starting to get it, because up and down all year, win-loss, starting slow every game, coming, fighting from behind, sometimes catching up, most of the time not, significantly under 500. The last three games before the game against Colorado, won in Boston, lost in a shootout against Montreal, got stoned by a hot goalie in Caden Primo, beat Arizona, all good efforts. And they're like, okay, finally get where things are starting to go. And then they get outshot 15-0 in the first period against Colorado. Now, Colorado got shut out in Buffalo 4-0 by Luukkonen. That was the game where Oposo hit Cale Makar, and luckily Makar didn't get hurt. But I think there was some ill feeling. There was some love in the building because of Eric Johnson, but I think the rest of the team and the rest of the feeling in that building was let's get this team. And they outshot Buffalo 15-0 and were up 3-0 in the first period. And even though Buffalo came back in the second period, it was a 5-1 victory for Colorado, and Skinner got walloped by Nathan MacKinnon. I mean, at full speed. And
Nathan MacKinnon these days, man, he's a linebacker.
Yeah. And he's
a big guy. Skinner is not a big, he is slight of frame.
Yeah. MacKinnon is, I think, 6'1", 6'2".
6'2", maybe.
Yeah, but he's, very strong middle and legs, and was going at full speed. And the hit was similar to the Jake McCabe hit on Ryan Lindgren, but Jake McCabe is not McKinnon. And Jake McCabe wasn't going at full speed. I mean, it was a real big hit. And now
that's the thing. Speed is that's another factor. They've got him at 6 foot. They've got him at 200 pounds. He's more than that.
Yeah, I'd say he's about 220. But anyway, Skinner is on IR, and now you've got to say the Sabres are in some trouble, because as soon they were slowly getting their players back. Thompson just came back. Tuck just came back. Greenway might be back on this trip. Gergensons is a veteran depth guy. They added Eric Robinson. Luukkonen was out with an illness. They had sent Levi down. They were just starting to get everybody back. And now the guy who's their leading goal scorer, 12 goals, Skinner, if he's out for a significant period, they first of all, they just can't seem to be 100% healthy. And a team that's sort of borderline has to be 100% healthy, and they're not.
Yeah, I think, look, when Henrik Lundqvist rips you on a national broadcast, and I didn't get to hear the quotes, but when he's talking about like their sloppy defensive play and they look like a rebuilding team and they're not supposed to be, he's telling you that from a goaltending perspective. Like, this is what the goalie is seeing. And their goaltending still isn't great, no matter how you slice it. And I still think Pekka Luukkonen is a backup. And so, they've got those problems. They've got D-zone problems and goaltending problems, and they're not going to be able to fix them all. And let's face it, their big guns are not scoring. Well, Thompson's not scoring the way he should. A lot of their big names aren't. This is just, I don't know. I don't think they can make it. And I picked them to make the playoffs because I was excited preseason about the Sabres. I have not been excited about anything I've seen in Buffalo this entire season.
Well, okay. I'll just say this. Like the Maple Leafs of 3 or 4 years ago, it's not simply a D zone problem, or it's not simply a D problem. It's a team D problem.
Right.
Their forwards are trying to score, especially now that they've been struggling to score, and I think they're putting themselves out of position at times, but also they just seem to start in a coma. And really, it's like they don't get going until the second period. And against most teams, you find yourself down 2-0 against Nashville, 3-0 against Colorado, 4-1 against Detroit, 4-0 against Detroit. I mean, those are deficits that you normally don't come back from. And honestly, we were talking about like Edmonton and what mathematics. And the funny thing is, Edmonton has won 7 games in a row. I know, it makes me sick, but they've won 7 games in a row. And they're still not out of the woods. Here's where Buffalo in the East is different than the West, because I think you said that the Edmonton's got like a 50-50 chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, like puck at them at 49.
Yeah, after winning 7 games in a row, they've only improved their odds to 50-50. Now, I don't know what Buffalo's is, but here's the reality. Buffalo right now, 30 games, 27 points. Behind them, Columbus, 30 games, 23 points. Columbus is one of the worst teams in the league. Ottawa, who has struggled, has only played 23 games. They've got 7 games in hand on the Buffalo Sabres. But that's not where you should be concerned. The second wild card right now is Washington, 31 points. Right. In between Washington and Buffalo, there's a 4-point gap. But in between them, New Jersey, better than the Sabres. Carolina, better than the Sabres. Tampa Bay.
And they have problems too.
And they have problems. All these teams have problems too. Otherwise, they wouldn't be where they are. But Tampa Bay, better than the Sabres. Pittsburgh, I'd say marginally
power play goals now. So
marginally better than the Sabres. The only one that is not better than the Sabres is Montreal. And Montreal has beaten Buffalo twice. So Buffalo's in trouble.
They're mathematics. I think by season's end, Don Granato might be in trouble because I just feel like they can't go on like this. Like, they're not a rebuilding team anymore. And they're not like one person away from fixing this. Mm-hmm. The goalie alone isn't going to fix this. A defenseman alone isn't going to. It's probably like a defensive forward and a goalie and a defenseman. It's probably like that complicated. And so they're not going to be able to get that done, even if their buyer is at the deadline, which if I were them, I would not be a buyer at the deadline.
Well, I mean, and this is okay. This is the thing why Kevin Adams and Granato may have bristled at the end of last season when the media rightly questioned them and said, is it playoffs or bust next year? And I think it was Granato who said, well, there is no bust. Well, yes, there is. It's like you're a team that missed the playoffs by 1 point, and everybody expects you, after you've missed the playoffs 12 years in a row, to make the playoffs. So when they say playoffs or bust, that meant you go out in the summer and you make the moves that are necessary to get that team in the playoffs. And what did they do? They kept the same goaltending, and they kept a 21-year-old goalie and expected him to be the savior, and he's not. He may be a good goaltender down the road, but he's 21 years old, and he's got 7 games of NHL experience. You've got a goaltender who's up and down, in Luukkonen, who I think has improved this year, but he's still up and down. And their defense, even though they've added Connor Clifton and Eric Johnson, is wholly dependent on Dahlin and Power. And Dahlin, in spite of being an unbelievable offensive defenseman, is not a mature defensive defenseman. He's physical, but he's a big version of Erik Karlsson. And as we've known, and as I've criticized Erik Karlsson for years, you expect him one-on-one to make a good defensive play. You're rolling the dice because sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't.
Yeah, Carl, you're right. No, you're right.
So, all right, let's move on. Since we did the last show, Craig Berube gets fired in St. Louis. I'm not patting myself on the back because I did predict St. Louis was going to have trouble this year.
They're not having that much trouble. They're 2 points out. It's just they've lost 4 regulation in a row, and there's something that happened in these games that made Doug Armstrong say, all right, we're really close here. We got to make a change because we really want to make the playoffs. And
now,
it's not Berube's fault. It's not.
No, and Braden Shen was interviewed and basically is like, we're pissed off and, we own this. We take responsibility for this. He wasn't at fault, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the good things to say, but, right now.
It doesn't mean a lot. I agree. He's the captain. He's doing captain things.
Right. Now, the interesting names that are coming out, and I think it was Elliot Friedman that mentioned this in his recent column. They seem to think that Drew Bannister is a placeholder, that he's not. This is purely an interim thing. He's not interim for the rest of the year. That they may be going after somebody else. But
Armstrong did leave the door open. He did say, I heard his interview, and he said that he's going to call on other people.
Now, one name that is being mentioned is Jay Woodcroft, and Armstrong apparently is close with Ken Holland. So, I'll
tell you what's bad about that. Jay Woodcroft was trying to preach defense, preach. Defense is not the strong point of the St. Louis Blues either. And I'm not sure just bringing in a defensive coach gets you there.
Well, no, but preaching defense with the incompetent defensive Edmonton Oilers, I mean, you had to because that was what was killing them.
You're still going to have to with St. Louis too.
Right, but not as much. They're not as incompetent. And they actually have, I'm still not a believer in what Jordan Binnington can be. He's been up and down and a little off kilter the last few years. So I don't know. I think their goaltending is better than Edmonton's situation, but there are not much that are worse than Edmonton's situation. The other name that was mentioned was Joel Quenneville, where he coached. Now, again, he's still, there's still the Heisman right now from the NHL. So we don't know, if they're asking permission from the NHL, whether he's cleared or not. Right. I mean, so that's unknown right now. But, that might be a situation. So, but the thing is, and we mentioned this when we were talking earlier, all 3 coaches that have been fired this year have been in the West: Edmonton, Minnesota, and now St. Louis. None in the East. And that, people in Ottawa are beating their head against the wall because they want DJ Smith fired. And up until this recent streak, the Islanders wanted Lane Lambert fired, but they've won 7 of their last 8.
He's safe. I told you he was safe a week ago. Yeah.
Yeah, but now they've won 8 of their last 11, so he's safe. So, yeah, go ahead.
I don't see Quenneville happening because, again, Bettman has said nothing. It's going to be a whole thing. I just don't see that happening. I think it's Bannister for the rest of the year. I do. Rest of the season. And then we'll see what happens with them. I do feel like that's the case. Come on. Mike Sullivan's job is as safe as any job in the league. Trust me.
I told you, Mike Sullivan was part of the hiring process for Kyle Dubas. There's no way Mike Sullivan gets fired this year. No way. I would be absolutely stunned. And
here's what I would say about Craig Berube also. He might want to take time off from coaching because, he had been there a long time. And sometimes coaches do want to take time off. Sometimes they go on the air. Sometimes they do other things. His best friend is Keith Jones, and the GM of the Flyers. Would not shock me if at some point Craig Berube got some position with the Flyers, and not in a coaching position, like to take over for Torts. Nothing like that.
Yeah, an advisory role or something. Yeah.
And that's, I think that's something that's possible. He also lives in Pennsylvania. It would make sense for him, even if he just wanted to cool his jets for a little while because of the pressure.
Right.
So who knows? I don't think he'll take over in Ottawa, though. I don't.
No, I don't think so.
Just to answer that Ottawa thing.
And just going back to St. Louis for a second, because I didn't see this quote, but Jeremy Rutherford wrote a piece. It wasn't everybody like Shen that was like all in lockstep with Berube, because we know Berube was sort of cantankerous. So he had that reputation.
But he had trouble with Steve Mason in Philly.
Yeah,
well documented.
Jordan Kyrou was asked about his relationship with Berube, and he says, "I've got no comment. He's not my coach anymore."
Right.
That doesn't like sound like, oh, it was all love and flowers and candies. So
Yeah, I just say this. We knew that there was an issue. When a player has an 8-year contract, it's a bad fight to take up if that's what was really going on, right? Because it's hard. You can't win that. When one of your star players or one of your core players has an 8-year deal and there's an issue there, you got an issue. So I think Kyrou took the high road. Good for him.
Now, do you know something about this?
I know something about everything, Mike.
Okay, we'll end the show there. No,
no, I mean, I just do. It's a gift.
Yeah, it's a gift. There is a NCAA player or a Russian player named Artem Duda.
Yeah.
You know this situation?
I don't know his situation. I just know that he is a big-time player.
Well, he apparently played 14 games for CSKA Moscow last season.
So he got paid.
He got paid, and the NCAA will not allow him to play.
Yeah.
So that 13 games, I don't know. I mean, honestly, if he was, I have to look up his record, whether he was playing in the USHL or.
Listen, I'm going to tell you, this is the worst thing about the NCAA, and this is going back to my favorite player of all time, Tom Seaver. He was at USC, Mike. I don't know if you know that.
Yes, with Tom Selleck. Tom Selleck was a teammate at USC.
Yeah. And the thing is, he got flagged because he played in like the Arizona Summer League. You know, that one that plays with – and they basically, because of that, he couldn't play NCAA baseball anymore, and that was the whole thing with the lottery, and the Mets won the lottery. Sorry, Phillies fans. Phillies lost it. But going back to then, and I didn't know about it in '67. I found out about it, years later when I was a fan, and I thought it was dumb then, and I think it's even dumber now.
Yeah, Duda played in the CSKA Moscow system, played for Russia at the under-18s, played in the VHL and the MHL, which I guess would have been acceptable, but then he played. Right. Then he played 14 KHL games. He got called up by CSKA Moscow during the season last year. He was supposed to play at the University of Maine next season, and they denied his eligibility. So
right. So now he'll be playing at the University of Moscow.
So no, he'll be playing in the MHL again. Yeah. So right. If there is,
it's just dumb. What are we doing here? Like, Esmir said, if he's the one, players are already getting paid for likenesses and everything else. So they're making money. Like, in the money-making phase now, why in the world does this matter?
Yeah, I don't get it. Couple other things. Chris O'Hearn, the assistant GM in Minnesota and the Wild, parted ways. I think it was Tuesday, and there's a lot of stuff that's sort of shrouded in mystery because he was Bill Guerin's right-hand man, and now all of a sudden there's a parting of the ways, and nobody seems to know what's going on there.
Oh, I'm sure Mike Russo knows.
Oh, I'm sure, but he probably just can't say it. Yes, but now breaking news from Thomas Boyle. Oh my God, really? Pavel Zacha.
Come on, we got to read it first. You know the rule. What's the news?
Pavel Zacha and Charlie McAvoy are on IR.
Oh, well.
Now, I know McAvoy was injured against the Sabres. It didn't seem to be a serious injury, but he left at a midpoint of the game, then came back, and then didn't play the following game. I don't think he played against New Jersey yesterday. No. So we don't know the nature of the injury. Now, so you're talking about their number one defenseman and their number one center. If it's something for a couple weeks, that team, the way they're structured, they're not going to miss a beat. If it's something long term, then that's a problem because Zacha's playing with Pasternak. McAvoy is on the number one pairing. That's a concern for that team.
I mean, they did actually lose.
Yeah, they lost it. They lost it, and they lost it in overtime on a really nice goal by Jack Hughes.
Yeah. Once it gets to 3-on-3, you have to devise a plan to cover Jack Hughes, and the Bruins didn't, and you have to, because if you don't, you're going to get burned every time like that. He's exceptional when it's 3-on-3. When he's got space, forget about it. I did want to mention this, Mike. As far as the Devils, I was watching that game, and I know Shimon Nemec. That's the new pronunciation.
Oh, is it?
Oh, yeah.
It's Coolidge. It's like Coolidge now.
Yeah. Look, they won that game, but I noticed with a very young decor there, you have Hughes, you have him, and not a lot of beef either on, like real rugged defensemen. They are missing Severson, like we said. They might even be missing Graves, but now they're young too. Now you're playing, a couple rookies, and Dougie Hamilton's out.
Right.
I'm going to tell you, I don't think they need Dougie Hamilton anymore because Luke Hughes fills the Dougie Hamilton role. You put Hamilton back in there, your defense then gets worse. And so my point is they should try and trade Hamilton. I don't know if there's a huge market because of what he's making.
Yeah, $9 million. No thanks.
So, but they got a problem with that. Like, this could end up being as big or bigger than the goaltending problem just for this year. Those guys are all going to be great players. Hughes is already second in rookie scoring. By the way, I did have Luke Hughes in my top 5 for potential Calder winners. So just saying. Mm-hmm. That's at full press hockey. But, my point is, no, it's not at sportsology.com or NHLdraftbuzz.com. But you still should go there because I have good stuff there. I just think that's part of the Devils' problem.
Yeah, no, I mean, and the thing is you got Luke Hughes on an entry-level contract. So you could say it balances out because between Luke Hughes and Dougie Hamilton, you're paying them $5 million each. You're just paying one $9 million and the other one $925,000.
Right. Or the other thing is, like, Esmir's like, hey, they got guys in Utica that could play third. But again, now you're bringing up more young players, Esmir. That is not going to help them. It's not.
Yeah, no.
So I think they've got to do something. They're going to have to get a rock-solid defenseman at the deadline. And that means they are going to have to give up an asset, a real asset. Now, Alexander Holtz is playing, and I would not trade him. Esmir is worried about the Palat contract. Yeah, that's worrisome for sure because he's already had an injury. Eric Halla is playing like a first liner. Like, it's unbelievable what Eric Halla is doing. Same as Kyle Palmieri for the Islanders, Mike. I picked him up 2 weeks ago in fantasy, and he's just ripping it up. He's been ripping it up for like 3 weeks at least.
And Zach Parise skating.
Yeah, he's coming.
He's coming, Zach
Parise is coming. He's got to find a spot for him. That, but he can't be for Matt Martin. They're going to have to do something else. But anyhow, just just getting back to it, I have some worries about the Devils that I didn't have at the beginning of the season. And so we'll see. Like, this is a tough thing now for Lindy Ruff. Last year was an unbelievable year, and it worked out great. This year they've got some definite hiccups here. And
before we take a couple questions, just talk about the news that came down a couple days ago that the Washington Capitals and the Washington Wizards, both owned by Ted Leonsis, are going to move from the Capital One Arena in downtown DC to Northern Virginia. Now, the funny thing is, from what I understand,
it's Alexandria, by the way.
Yeah, no, but right, exactly. It's what, like 10 miles away from DC?
Yeah, with a lot of traffic.
Right, but they're getting tax breaks. It's land. They're getting a development around there.
Yeah, it's a real estate deal.
It's a real estate deal. But also, they're getting out of downtown DC, which is a crime cesspool.
It's not. That is such garbage. No.
It is. I'm telling you.
It's not, Mike. I've gone to games there. I've been there at least 4 or 5 times. This is a blown out garbage story that some parts of the media have exploited. It is not true. Well, now, people don't go to the Wizards because what do they have? 3 wins?
Well, they suck.
I'm not talking
about the Wizards. Yeah.
Are they one of the 3 and 20 teams in the NBA? There's like 3 or 4 of them.
They're
18 games in a row.
They're as bad as their team name, but okay.
This is going to be a rink without Alex Ovechkin. That's one thing.
It's okay. You may say this is a red herring, but it definitely was a factor in the decision. And the funny thing was, the other thing was that Muriel Bowser, the mayor of DC, the organization was pushing for an upgrade of the arena, of Capital One Arena, as you would, I think, used to be the MCI Center.
Yes.
It's about 25 years old, 24, 25 years old, I think.
30, I heard. Maybe. I thought I heard 30, but I'm not sure.
Remember, they moved from Landover to that.
Yeah, and I went to a game at Landover when I lived in Virginia. I did.
Right. So
maybe two.
So they were asking for upgrades, begging for upgrades for years. And then they announced this deal. And lo and behold, the same day they announced the deal, Muriel Bowser comes out, well, we have a $500 million upgrade package. Oh, where was that when they were asking for it?
Okay, 2 things. First thing, Timothy's like, well, there's been over 900 carjackings in D.C. Most people take the train there to Chinatown. It's easy. That's the easiest way to go. You don't ever need to drive that. That's one thing. The other thing, what was the last thing you said? Sorry.
Well, I mean, the tax breaks, the land deal, there's a number of factors.
Yeah, I will say this. I listened to Tony Kornheiser yesterday, who's lived there for 44 years. And he doesn't like, I know what it was. It was the mayor thing. It doesn't really matter when the mayor thing happened because Leonsis hasn't signed on the dotted line, and there's only $100 million holding them apart. Like, if they wanted to stay, they could stay, Mike. I mean, I think we realize they're not staying.
I don't think they want to stay.
Right. They don't want to stay. But I'm also going to tell you that they are going to have trouble with their next fan base because they're going to lose a fair amount of fans, especially for basketball, even though I'm sure they're not great in attendance. They're going to have to start from scratch for basketball because this is, you're going from the Bullets to the Wizards, to the washed up Michael Jordan to this. You know what I mean? And I got to tell you, back in the old days with Elvin Hayes and stuff, they were great.
Right, but okay, that's 45 years ago.
I know.
It's Bradley Beal, and it's the problem is now is that most of the money is in those collar counties. They're not in downtown DC. I mean, Georgetown, sure, but I mean, most of the money is out in Northern Virginia. So
you know who's going to be in downtown DC before you know it? The Commanders are going back to downtown DC.
Good. They can play at the MCI Center.
No, but I'm just saying that this is. They
They're going to play at RFK Stadium.
They should be there. And something Kornheiser said, which I believe in, if they leave the area, don't do what the Jets did. Don't do what New York and New Jersey did and let them take the New York name. Take the Washington name away from them.
But they never will.
We don't know that.
I seriously doubt it. But anyway, let's answer some questions before we end the show. Randy says, what are the chances of Toronto trading for what are the chances of Toronto not picking up a goalie? I don't think they're going to pick up a goalie unless one of the two goalies gets hurt. That currently Samsonov.
Yeah, I don't foresee.
Wall is week to week with a high ankle sprain. That probably means he's back before the All-Star break. So if that's the case, I think they stick with these guys. I mean, right now they've been hot, even though their defense has been half their defense has been out, and now they lose their best goaltender. But I don't think they're going to make a goalie trade.
I mean, when you're saying their best goalie, like he's good, but even he doesn't have enough of a track record yet that we really.
No, I'm not saying he has a track.
No, I know that he is the best that they have.
Yes,
but it's uncharted waters for the next, whenever he comes back too.
Correct. Okay, Randy is saying the Flames have 5 offers for Tanev.
Then take one. Why haven't they taken one, Randy?
Well, I mean, I'll say this. Calgary may be delusional in the fact that they think that they're still in the playoff race. They should not allow the thought of them being in a playoff race to prevent them from trading players who we know are not staying there. We know that Lindholm is not staying there. We know Hannafin is not staying there. We know Tanev is not staying there. Now, if one of those 5 teams is Toronto, I've talked about this before. I do not believe Toronto. First of all, Toronto has limited assets because of some of the trades that they made over the last couple of years. I do not advocate them trading, say, a first-round pick for Tanev when they could very easily get Tanev in the summer.
Right.
I don't think they're winning the Stanley Cup this year. And if you think you have a chance, go out and pay a 5th-round pick for David Savard or a 4th-round pick for Ilya Lyubushkin or somebody like that. Do not go and trade a 1st-round pick for Chris Tanev. Even if you think you can re-sign him in the summer. That's all I can say. Go ahead.
I will say this. This 5 offers sounds a lot like Facebook Marketplace when I was trying to move my dad's furniture. You put it on sale. You get all these people. How much? I want it. So they click the thing that says they're going to accept it. They accept the offer. They don't buy it. This is exactly what's happening with Calgary. Everybody's calling and saying, oh, yeah, we want Tanev. And then they're given the highest possible price, and then nobody wants Tanev anymore. So I don't think it's happening before the All-Star game. I don't.
I'll answer this one quickly. Will is asking, now that Nylander has cooled off a little, what do you think the Leafs can sign him for? No, his agent's still going to be asking for $11 million. I'm telling you right now, his agent
10.8. He'll sign for 10.8, Mike.
Yep, he'll sign for that in LA or someplace like that because I don't think they're going to sign him for that much. Okay, let's see here. Esmir asking, do you think the Devils trading a prospect like Seamus Casey for some pieces?
I just watched Casey in camp. He looks great. There's no way they should ever trade that kid. No way. Find somebody else to trade. I do think, Holtz would be a better trade chip.
Yes, he is, because I think
it's the allure of the sniper. You could say, hey, he hasn't reached his potential, which he hasn't. Defense is hard to find, man. And Casey, even though he's not the biggest guy, can actually play defense and offense too.
Yeah. Flyers should be sellers of the trade deadline. Who is most likely to go? Well, obviously Sealer and Walker have been talked about.
I'm not going to say obviously Sealer because Tortorella loves
him.
No,
they've been talked about. I said obviously they've been talked about.
Right, but he's asking who's most likely to go. Talk is cheap, Mike. Well, it's true. I think Walker will go.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll get the highest thing they can get for him. Sealer should go, but I'm not sure will. Somebody asked, is Carter Hart on the block? He is not on the block. I don't think he'll get traded at the deadline, Carter Hart, because they still have another year with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'll either be a draft day trade or not traded at all, and they sign him. So I think they're going to push that one off. I don't think that's going to happen. Konechny could get traded. Now, again, it depends if they still think they're in the playoffs at that time. But Konechny could definitely get traded because he's only got 1 year left. He's playing the best hockey of his career. If the Flyers say we're not trading Konechny because we're in the playoffs and don't make the playoffs,
yes,
and then they trade Konechny the year after in his last year, they're not going to get as much. Teams want to get that playoff run with a guy and the year after, and they'll pay a bounty for that, especially an offensive guy like him. So I think that's the most important guy that you're looking at to trade. And I would trade him regardless. I would just be like, listen, no matter what our record is, we have to stick to the plan. And if Danny Briere is going to stick to the plan that he says they are truly rebuilding, then you look John in the face and you say, go try and win, John, but we are rebuilding. And as a rebuilding team, I need to get more assets for this draft. It's a great draft. I need more assets for it. That should be the mandate.
Yeah. All right. Stay tuned. We may be back tomorrow. We're hoping that Eck will be back. If not, we may do a show depending on Russ's travel back to.
No, I'm not traveling back till a couple more days. I'm fine.
Oh, okay. So
it has nothing to do with me, folks. Don't worry about me.
Never mind.
Mike's trying to pin something on me that doesn't exist.
I'm not trying to pin crap on you. So never mind.
Don't pin crap on me. I'd rather have flair. I don't need crap.
Okay. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.